All right. Audio should be good, right? Can y'all hear me? Oh God, I hope you guys can hear me. All right. Well, definitely hoping that you guys can hear me. If you can't, boy, this is about to be one of the worst experiences on my live stream ever. Now, I'm ready to get into this. Before this live stream officially kicks off, I just want to tell you guys right now that I actually have a ranking video coming up pretty soon. And it's basically going to be discussing all of the Batman movies. And I'm going to be ranking them all from worst to the best. So that hopefully is going to go fairly okay. And why do I keep blanking out today? I have a bad habit of blanking out today, you guys. So let's go ahead and start off with what I need to say. This is the best Batman movie that I've seen in film adaptation. Honestly, it feels like everything that Matt Reeves has done with this character feels very genuine, feels very different from what we're used to with the Batman character, and I can tell you why here in a minute. And something that feels very refreshing, but also something that we're coming to a place that's very familiar with the character, right? Like the detective aspect to the character. Like Batman's the world's greatest detective. That's never been explored before. And before this movie came out, I talked to someone, one of my friends, and ironically, they've seen only the Nolan trilogy. And after they watched those movies, they told me after they saw the trailer for this movie, they're like, why is Batman doing detective work? He's not a detective. I'm like, yeah, he is. And they're like, when? I'm like, yeah, Batman, the world's greatest detective. They're like, no, because in The Dark Knight, he didn't do. I'm like, see, and that's where I have the problem with Nolan's version of Batman because he's not really able to do a lot of stuff on his own. He's and on top of that, he's very polished when he first started off, right? Like the moment he gets all of his equipment, he's immediately the Batman. Immediately, like he's not making tons of mistakes. And don't say that getting gassed by Scarecrow is a mistake. That's a rookie mistake because that's more of a mistake that every Batman has made, inexperienced or not. So yeah, he was very polished, and Pattinson's Batman is very different from that. His Bruce Wayne persona is not really polished. Like he hasn't differentiated the difference between Bruce Wayne and Batman, because clearly you can tell he wants to just be Bruce Wayne all the time. And in order to maintain your identity and keep it a secret, you got to have a balance. You can't just be Batman 24/7 and not have any Bruce Wayne. Otherwise, people are going to start picking up. And that's a lesson he's probably going to learn in the next movie. He almost learned that lesson in this movie. Because that brilliant interrogation scene where he's with the Riddler and he's like, Bruce Wayne, Bruce Wayne. And you just see him looking over at the camera like, oh, shoot, I got discovered. Then we'll talk about that a bit more later, but he was very lucky. But yeah, you can just tell that he's not willing to put on that persona yet. It's a learning. It's how do I put it? It's something that he needs to learn to do, and it's something that he needs to definitely work on. I'm not talking about Pattinson. I'm talking about the character of Bruce Wayne in this story, and that's what's brilliant about it is the fact that he's learning and he's going along with stuff. So obviously, the beginning of this movie starts off, and I fell in love with it immediately because it started off kind of like a horror movie because you have the Riddler sneaking into the mayor's mansion, and when he walks away, you see him just standing there in the darkness, very creepy serial killer outfit, and the light from the television reflecting off his glasses made his eyes look like they're glowing. And that was really disturbing because I think I heard the audience go, "Oh man," when that happened. So yeah, it was a bit disturbing, and obviously he kills the mayor, and we cut over to Gotham City and what's looking like. And the film starts off with narration from Bruce. He's documenting a lot of this stuff in his head and quite literally in his journal called The Gotham Project Year 2, which there lets you know that it's only his second year being Batman, so he's not going to be as polished, obviously. But he's basically saying, no, I've been Batman for doing this stuff for a while, or not for a while, but for a little bit of time, and he's been kind of making an impact, but not the impact that he wants because he notices that crime is up, and nothing's really like legitimately like changing about what he's doing. And the way they handled that was so, so, so very well done. Um, I especially love the fact that the way they introduce him as Batman, they focus, and this comes down to the cinematography, because the cinematography is done by the same dude who does cinematography for Rogue One, and you guys know about that Darth Vader scene, walking down the hallway, beating all of them up. Yeah, so he did the cinematography for that scene and for that movie. And he does it for this one. And you can clearly tell his style because this is the most gorgeous looking Batman movie. And I say that wholeheartedly. Like, I was thoroughly like sucked into this world that they created and the world of Gotham City because it's very filthy. It's very dirty. It's like all the other movies you always think to yourself, like whenever they say Gotham's beyond saving and, Gotham's a lost cause, you never get that sense. Especially with Christopher Nolan's films. Like, you do get the sense of that in Batman Begins a little bit, but not a lot. It's not focused on. And the same thing, especially with The Dark Knight. Like, obviously, there's like crime bosses and stuff like that. But if you look at it from a lot of the stuff there, like the city, like relatively looks very clean. It looks like a very clean Chicago. So, like, you never understand why people are like, oh, the city's beyond saving. This is like a rundown place. You never get that sense. This one, oh yeah, you can get that sense because people are always constantly, every scene, someone's either vandalizing, someone's robbing someone, someone's over here robbing the store. You see people just beating up people on the side of the street. You see other people just making out in the corner. Like, it is a disgusting place. You do not want to be in the city. And this is the Gotham City that I've always imagined. And you just see Bruce walking through there, scouting the place out, trying to see what he can do, wearing a very drifter-like outfit, which is so reminiscent to Batman Year One, where he's walking down and it's his first time out in the streets kind of observing everything, except for this version, he's continually doing it. So that was a very interesting way to introduce him as Batman, but the way they handled it was very well, especially when we see, of course, you guys see in the trailer, the Skull Gang, and if you guys seen the movie, you guys know what I'm talking about, where they kind of like are over here robbing that dude, and you just hear his footsteps in the dark, and they linger on the shot of the shadows for a while before he actually comes out. And he's just those footsteps. Batman has a very particular sound to his footsteps in this movie. And when you hear them, you don't know which way he's going to come from. But when he does come from that way, it's just good stuff, man. And it utilizes the idea of Batman utilizing the shadows as part of his weapon, which is something that he's always done. Like, as he says in this movie, I am the shadows. That's essentially what Batman does all the time. So, yeah, and then the way he beats up those dudes, it's good stuff. But I will say this, a lot of people may not like how Batman gets some hits on him multiple times throughout this movie, but I like that because in a realistic fight, if you're surrounded by a group of dudes, like you're fighting 3 or 4 dudes up here and you're doing a good job, some dude's gonna come up behind you and like bop you in the back of the head or bop you on the shoulder and stuff. Like, they're not just gonna stand around and let you like gang up on everybody. Like, nah, like they're all gonna try and come after you at once. And that's what they did in this movie. And he did get hit multiple times, but that showed why he had the armor to kind of like guard him from stuff like that, which was a very nice touch. That and the moment he's called by the bat signal, also I forgot to mention, the way they utilize the bat signal to also invoke fear into people, great. Because every time you see a criminal look up at the sky. They look up at the sky and see that signal. Then they look at the shadows. Like, there was even a scene where a dude, when he was vandalizing, he dropped his spray can in the shadows. He looks up at the sky, sees the signal, looks at the shadows again, and just leaves it. He's like, all right, I'm going. Like, the way they did stuff like that felt so good, man. And it let me know that we're in for a treat from Matt Reeves here. And when they bring him onto the crime scene with Jeffrey Wright's Gordon, which they have a very Batman or a Sherlock Holmes and Watson kind of relationship, except it's more buddy cop, a little bit more of that with Watson. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's kind of like a mix of multiple things, but at the same time, you also very much see them as Batman and Gordon in this interpretation. I'm gonna get a drink of water because my throat's getting dry. So, but yeah, they bring him onto the crime scene. And one thing that I love is that every cop that you could think of is constantly like, Gordon, why are you bringing this dude up on the crime scene? Like, why are you bringing this like dude in a pointy-eared suit onto this crime scene? Like, this is our business. Like, leave him out of this. And plus, he's breaking the law constantly. So why are you letting him up in here? But I also love how you see Batman, just the way Robert Pattinson acts in the suit. You see him figuring stuff out as he's going along throughout a room. Like, there's even a moment where he notices a little bit of blood droplets that maybe nobody else would kind of notice and kind of glance over. He notices that on the floor, and a person looks over at him, finally notices it, and is like, takes a picture of it finally. Like, he's noticing stuff that these people normally wouldn't notice. And just by doing that, he's able to reconstruct the crime scene in his head of what happened. And he's right, because he says like almost exactly what happened. Of course, they, you know, kind of do some, you know, like a Saw or Seven vibes where, you know, they take off the mayor's thumb. You don't see that, but they tell you about it. And so after that crime scene's done, he heads back to the manor, or should I say the Batcave, or the early stage Batcave, because it's right under Wayne Tower, which, before you guys say, why would the Batcave be under? It's a prototype Batcave, and number two, it's in a subway system, or a failed subway system where nobody really uses it, and so you can just ride up in there, nobody's going to go down there, and it's right under his building, which is public or private property, and not to mention the fact that he can just go down there anytime he wants. And plus, the manor's been donated as an orphanage before in the past, before it got burnt down. In the prequel novel, revealed to be Edward Nashton, that have been the one who burnt down the orphanage. But yeah, something very interesting that they did there. Also love the details, just simple stuff they point out in here. Like, in a Batman movie, we've never seen Bruce Wayne legitimately like look tired. Like, he'll sleep. Like in The Dark Knight, you see him sleeping in a chair, but you don't see him look tired. Like, he comes in the manor and his eyes are bloodshot red. Like, he is exhausted. And as a dude who practically gets almost zero to no sleep, or zero to very little sleep, yeah, it makes sense that his eyes would be pretty red or yellow. But moving on, yeah, he has this really cool detail where he has these contact lenses, which, by the way, Bruce makes all of the gadgets by himself. Matt Reeves confirmed that. So no Lucius spots, just Bruce using his brains and smarts, and I love it. I love it. So he designed these contact lenses to kind of record what he's doing out at night. And I love that because you can review crime scenes, review things that he's kind of missed, reconstruct some things. So Alfred kind of comes in, tells him about a public meeting, and this is where we kind of get into where Bruce just doesn't care about being, the Bruce Wayne in the spotlight. Because he's like, I don't care about my family's legacy. I don't care about what happens to me. I don't care about my company. And Alfred's like, you need to do this. You need to do this, Bruce. And he's like, you're not my father, which was very hurtful to say to him because Alfred does view him somewhat in the way of being a son. But yeah, it's good stuff. Andy Serkis is Alfred. Chef's kiss. But ultimately he does decide to help Bruce because, he's just that awesome. And basically he decides that while Bruce is busy doing other stuff, he's going to decipher some coding that the Riddler left for him. And I love the detail that Bruce is constantly like, even though he's intelligent, he's very open to kind of learning some stuff from other people. Like for example, Alfred's when he's deciphering some of the stuff on the puzzle, he looks at it and he says, "This is this how it works." And Bruce goes, "Interesting." He wants to learn, and I like that because it shows that he's, unlike Christian Bale's version, he's very much a thinker. I'm not saying that Christian Bale's version of Batman's stupid. I'm just saying that this one's much more intellectual than that one, which is typically how the character is. But definitely seeing. I got sneeze. If I sneeze in the middle of this, I'm sorry, guys. Seeing Jeffrey Wright's Gordon bring Batman back on a crime scene, they figure out that there was a drive the mayor had, a thumb drive, because Riddler attached the mayor's thumb to the drive. Dark sense of humor, Riddler, wouldn't you say? But yeah, they basically figure out some stuff with the mayor basically cheating on his wife and stuff like that. Basic politician stuff. But there was someone that he was with that was connected to Selena Kyle's character, who I'm actually going to speed this up a little bit because I want to kind of get through this bit. Selena's friend goes missing, and she was the one who was with the mayor, which this version of Selena Kyle is very much year one based. Shorter hair, working for these different clubs and places, but she's not really like a cat burglar, like how she does become later, which I'm assuming that she's going to come back later in another movie, and she's going to have the full-on Catwoman outfit. But for now on, this is prototype Catwoman. So she's not fully like Catwoman in this. So ultimately, he does meet Catwoman, and he decides to follow her, and that's when we get the fight scene between them, showing both their strengths and their weaknesses. Mostly her weaknesses, because there's no way she could stand up with Batman. But ultimately, they do end up working together. They try to get into the Penguins Club. They go into Penguins Club 4 times in this movie. Okay, so first time, Batman decides to go and interrogate the Penguin about the girl who is Catwoman's friend, and that's when she notices, and then friend goes missing. He goes up to the door and he's like, "Do you know who I am?" And they're like, "Yeah, we don't care, dude." And he ends up having to like beat them up. And I just love the threats that Robert. This is the moment that made Robert, where I loved Robert. They were like, "You better get out of here before this gets messy." And he's like, "For you or for me?" I'm like, well, actually, no, I think he did it the other way around. Daggone it. See, I messed up the line. Oh my God. See, this is why I would not be a good Batman. I would mess up the lines. He was like, "For me or for you?" And after he did that, I was like, oh shoot. And he just beats everybody in there. He's jacking them up, giving them left hooks and everything. He messed people up in there. And revealed a bunch of new gadgets that he has. For example, the grappling gun that comes out of his, gauntlet. Which I told you that was going to happen. Told you guys, if you guys have not seen my prior discussion videos on Batman TV spots and stuff. Yeah, man, this really went hardcore detective story, because after, they break into a club, they both have conflicting ideals on how to handle stuff. She ditches him, gets rid of the contacts, so he's not able to go in there. And they basically have their own ways of handling stuff. Basically, after that point, I think the funeral scene, like I said, I need to watch this again and again, because there's so much stuff going through my mind. It's hard for me to keep all the scenes straight, because there's so many memorable scenes to me that it's like hard to keep all this straight. But so Bruce goes to the funeral, as you guys see, as, just to kind of go there to kind of investigate further. And it's funny because when he gets out of the car and people start taking photos of him, he does something. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't like this." I love it because he's gonna develop into that Bruce. But I bet what's gonna happen is he's gonna have a similar moment later in a later film where he actually smiles at the public. But for now, when people are looking at him taking pictures, he's just like, like he's so reclusive and he's kind of like shy. So, and he sees Falcone there, he talks to him, and they did establish the long Halloween storyline into this where, Falcone got shot and Thomas saves him. So they established that in there. So the funeral happens, the mayor ends up in there. You guys seen the clip before. But then as the police are around the building trying to get the bomb off his neck, or kind of observing what it is with one of those drones, you hear the footsteps again. And you see Battinson walk out of the shadows and he starts disarming the bomb. But they have to answer the riddles. And like I said, Paul Dano's Riddler is so good. You cannot tell me this isn't one of the more memorable Batman villains, because he is so good. Not like, if you guys were worried that he was only gonna be like the Zodiac Killer or like some of these other people, yes, he does have heavy influence in that, but this is very much the Riddler, where he is kind of playing around with them a bit. For example, he's like, "I'll let you go with 3 riddles. If you are justice, please do not lie. What is the price for your blind eye?" He asked that question. He asked, all these other questions regarding, a rat in the system and stuff like that. Just the way they handle it, so well done. Either way, this dude was gonna die. I mean, the more I think about it, this dude was most definitely gonna die because he was toying with him. Like the bomb is on a timer, and each time he gets a question right, he's like, "Very good, Mr. Coulson. And as you know, this, that." I'm like, "You're wasting time intentionally. You are such a jerk." But yes, it is so Riddler. I loved it. And it was so intense. And I felt so bad for that. I mean, I knew he was going to die, but the way it happened, I was like, you could have saved your own life, bro. Because he asked him, who was the rat, and he refused to give it up. So at that point, it was done, and the explosion happens. Batman's knocked unconscious, and he kind of starts waking up. They're flashing, lights in his eyes. He's in the police station. They're trying to observe him, see if he's okay. And they're like, "All right, let's take off the mask." And he does a very Batman thing where the moment they try to take off that mask, he just punches their hand away. He gets back up and tries to fight the cops. I'm like, oh, it's so good. And especially as he's talking to the main, captain, he's like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't trust you either." And then the dude behind him tries to grab the mask. He's like, "Hey, take the mask off." He punches the dude. And the captain's like, "You're under arrest for assaulting an officer." He's like, "How about assault 3?" It was so early days Batman that I loved it. But ultimately, we do get to that scene where Commissioner Gordon and him are having a conversation like, "Hey, man, you need to cool it." So they start having a conversation, but it was definitely edited down in the clip that we saw before, because Gordon actually whispers to him, "You need to hit me. And you can take my keys as well, but you got to be kind of slick about it because you need to get out of here." So, Batman punches Gordon, and when he gets to the roof, this is the scene where it made me realize this is the perfect early years Batman, because he really doesn't know what he's doing. And it's when he gets up there, and it's about time for him to activate that wingsuit. And when he activates that wingsuit, before he activates it, he gets to the ledge, and I've never seen Batman do this before, where he runs up to the ledge, and he stops like, "Oh, I've never seen Batman do that before." But they did it in here and it works. It works because he hasn't done this before. So he activates that wingsuit, he hops off, and that didn't go too well because he activates that parachute. It snags onto the bridge, he flings across this bus. I'm like, man, he got messed up, man. I felt kind of bad for him because he's on the ground. I'm like, oh man, you got messed up, Bruce. Maybe you should have thought about this a bit better. But again, it shows his inexperience. And that stuff like that throughout the entire movie is what made me love this so much. Um, and this, you notice how sloppy I am because I'm so passionate about this. Like, this is the Batman that I've been wanting to see for a while. Um, but yeah, he did get away from the cops, but it's just that wingsuit moment. I was like, this sold me. Like, if I wasn't already sold, this sold me even more. We ran up and he was like, oh, and then pulled the wingsuit. I'm like, wow, he's never done that before. Like, it was crazy to me. But yeah, so basically, ultimately, Gordon and Batman are still working together. They think that, the rat is the penguin because, El Rata something. Um, and basically, we get to the scene where, Catwoman kind of intervenes. She finds her friend in the trunk with, the Penguins gang. And basically, you guys see it in the trailer. The Batmobile chase happens, and this is the best action scene in the movie. I love the way that thing started up so good, where the Batmobile, you just hear it, and everybody turns around. You see the blinking lights in the darkness, the fire sparking up, and the thing's about to take off, but the car stops for a second. I love that moment because it even showed that some of the Batman's gear does kind of fail on him a little bit. Like the car didn't stop all the way; it was just like kind of lagged, and Penguin got a little bit of a head start, but he does catch up with him. When you get that famous moment, the cape flowing in the wind as the car's upside down. He walks up to it, he looks down and sees the Penguin. Sup, buddy? Loved it. But yeah, touching more on just more of the detective skills, the way they're able to figure out the El Rada stuff and how it led to URL, which they typed in the computer and it was able to get a cryptic message from the Riddler. Just stuff like that. Batman figuring stuff out as he was going along just showed how intelligent this version is and displayed his detective skills so well. But touching more on the Catwoman story, again, how I said they're following the Long Halloween. Catwoman's father is Falcone. Ultimately, her mom was, killed. She doesn't know how. Her friend, she found out, was killed by Falcone, so she goes over there to try and kill him. It turns out, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, yes. Is it before that or is it after? It is definitely after. It is definitely before that. There was a scene where Bruce and Gordon was investigating the Wayne Orphanage. And as they were investigating the orphanage, there was a couple of things that were revealed to Bruce. And then he finds out that, he's supposedly his next target. So he goes back to the tower trying to save Alfred. And he contacts the employee there. And he says, you need to put Alfred on the phone, he's gonna be in some serious trouble. He was an hour too late. Alfred's in the hospital, but because of his his military training, he was able to be fast enough to fling that bomb away from him, just far enough, right behind a stone table, to the point where it was able to shield him from getting burnt by the explosion. And in that moment, I was like, okay, so they showed Alfred's very competent in this version. Michael Caine's version would have been dead. Yeah, then so after that, Bruce and him have a talk about, Falcone, and basically all the stuff on the news has come out about his father bribing different people to keep their mouth shut about his wife Martha, about her being crazy, and he was trying to go for being a mayor, and basically a reporter tried to report on it, and what happened was he hired Falcone to scare him into keeping his mouth shut because he was desperate to protect Martha. But Falcone took it too far and killed him. And Thomas felt very regretful about it, and he was going to turn himself in and turn Falcone in. But what happened was that same night he died. So they don't know if it's directly Falcone who got him killed. It could have been just a common guy. They don't know, and I love that because they're like not directly like, oh, this guy is the one who's responsible for your parents' death. It's not like that where it's like the Joker is like indirectly responsible or stuff like that. It's like, no, we don't know who did it. And I like how they stuck to that. And on top of that, I do like the fact that they took the route of the Waynes not being squeaky clean, but at the same time, it wasn't like they were monsters. It was out of a reason, out of desperation, and wanting to protect someone who he actually cared about. Which, when you make decisions that are, kind of quick in the moment and you're kind of scared, you allow your fear to kind of take over, you do make very irrational decisions, which ultimately made the Waynes feel more fleshed out. And that's what I mean by Gotham as a whole in this whole movie. There are always things that are constantly getting fleshed out, whether you notice it or not. Let me go and get another drink of water. I'm saying a lot in this live stream. But ultimately, Selina goes to try and kill Falcone because supposedly because he's the one who killed her friend. And, Batman stops her and says, this is not the way. And that was such a powerful moment. And as they take him out, Riddler snipes Falcone. And, Falcone's dead. Which I was kind of bummed out. I wanted to see more John Turturro's Carmine Falcone. Or Falcone in this one. I'm going to call him Falcone because that's the way I've always called him. But it is a little bit of a bummer. But again, I understand why, because they need to have room for the Penguin to rise, because he's not known as the Penguin yet, because this is more of an origin story for the villains in this movie. So he's not yet called the Penguin yet. He's still just Oswald Cobblepot, or as he goes in this movie, Oz. So after they catch the Riddler, they go back in the apartment and they're kind of searching through Riddler's apartment, kind of noticing some stuff. Bruce kind of takes a look on the wall and he begins to think that Riddler knows that he's Batman. And then they hear Riddler's requesting for you in Arkham. And this scene is so good. You guys said that Heath Ledger's interrogation scene could not be rivaled. I think this came pretty close. That's just personal preference. I mean, again, like I said, because of this Batman, and not having that stupid voice, and this city just showed you that it's full of people ready to believe in good, and the stupid mouth thing. You wasn't on the way occupants. Because he doesn't have that voice, he's able to actually finally have a conversation with these people. You couldn't have a conversation with Christian Bale's Batman. Robert Pattinson's Batman, because it's more of a whisper, it's much more lower register. You can have a conversation with him. And so in the jail, just hearing, and Paul Dano is brilliant as the Riddler. Oh my gosh. Just hearing him go, I wish I knew what I knew before then. And there's a camera on him in the cell and everything. You just see Batman standing in the corner. And Pattinson, oh my God, Pattinson emotes in the suit so well, because the way his eyes look, and he's kind of looking away from him, trying to keep eye contact, but he can't, because he thinks that he's found out. And you just hear Edward Nashton, Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne. And then he looks at the camera. Bruce Wayne. And then Pattinson, you could tell he's getting more and more anxious. But then he's like, he's the one that we didn't get, huh? He doesn't know who he is. And it's such a relief for him, because you can see Batman in that moment. Then he starts approaching the glass a little bit more. And so basically, they have this conversation, and Riddler's like, you inspired me to do this. And then he's like, you're out of your mind. And when he says that, and then Riddler starts freaking out, and then he's like, you need help. He goes, and this is one of my favorite lines from Paul Dano's Riddler because it just shows how deranged this dude is and how nuts. He's just nuts. He's like, oh, no, 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 no. I didn't do that justice, but it was like that. And he's like, this wasn't supposed to go this way. We were supposed to watch it all together. And in that moment, like, I know a lot of people said that they have a problem with like the third act and that it kind of gets very superhero-y. But Batman's a superhero. And again, Matt Reeves understands that to do a proper Batman story, you have to keep some level of fantastical elements in there. You can't have it all be ultra realistic. Otherwise, you'll get the Nolan films where the Nolan films try to go so realistic that you can't do all the characters proper justice. But just seeing the look on Robert's face, he's like, what have you done? And as he keeps asking him, what have you done? He's pounding on that glass, yelling at him, what have you done? What have you done? Good acting. He didn't figure everything out, but you realize, and just even showing how smart Batman is, but even still being as smart as he is, he still makes mistakes. The first weapon that Riddler used to kill someone with was a rug puller. And he realized in the Riddler's apartment, there's this big rug that's just in the middle. And he utilizes it. I'm like, this is the Batman that we deserve. And the one that we need. I'm not going to say need or just, I'm not going to do that whole Dark Knight monologue where it's like, not the one that we deserve, but the one that we need. Like, it's, this is the Batman that we've been waiting for. Like, he utilizes that rug puller and realizes that there's bombs at each part of the city that will cause flooding in the city, which the city floods, which leads to the finale where the Riddler basically created like this cult following online where these people support his cause, which is so terrifying because that is so realistic feeling that he would utilize something like that as on a platform to kind of form this group, part of his cause, which even though we don't have stuff that intense out in the public, stuff like that still exists. And so we get to the finale, that great fight between him and the Riddler goons, just showing, him beating them up and making, again, rookie mistakes where a bullet bounces off his armor, but then it hits one of the wires and he falls down. And he gets hit multiple times. And even his own cockiness in the battle, like he knocks the dude down, he gets cocky, he starts walking towards him, and the dude pulls a shotgun on him and blasts him in the chest, which causes him to get injured. But yeah, and then Catwoman saves him. You definitely see him. You see him, like, after Catwoman saves him, another one of the goons tries to jump her. He looks over, sees she's in trouble. He takes out this injection thing. I think it's either adrenaline or an early stage of venom. A lot of people were kind of theorizing that, and I was kind of theorizing that, but I think it's just adrenaline. I don't think Batman would go that far to be like, I'm experimenting on this compound called Venom and some guy named Bane is going to steal it or something. Like, I don't think they're going to go that far in the story. Like, come on. But he pumps himself up with adrenaline. He just wails on this dude's face, man. I felt whoever this dude is, he's going to need like reconstructive surgery all over his face. His nose was beaten so bad to the point where it was crooked, like not even like this. It was like on the side like that, and his face was all like beat up and stuff. Which this movie, do not take your like kids, little kids, none of that to see that, because this is like hardcore PG-13, like to the point where I couldn't believe that some of this was not R, which it is R-rated in the UK. But yeah, just after Gordon takes off his mask, you see the dude's face is all jacked up. He asks, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm vengeance." And when he says that, you see the look on Pattinson's Batman's face, and he realizes, oh man, I messed up. Like, just the expression, he didn't say it. He just, the way he looked was like, I think I made a mistake because he caused escalation. It was a different form of escalation, but it was nonetheless escalation. And he inspired these people. And so inadvertently, some of it is his fault. Or should I say indirectly, some of it is his fault. And I love the contrast between the beginning of the film, where the guy at the beginning, after he saves him from the Skull Gang, uh, the guy's like, "Please don't hurt me." Whereas in this one, people are starting to trust him to save them. Especially at the end, it felt so powerful just from the imagery alone, and not Pattinson saying anything to the lady or anything like, "You're gonna be okay, ma'am. I got you." Like, he didn't do any of that. It was just him carrying the lady to a helicopter lift for medical treatment. And as he carries her, he sets her on there and she grabs onto him, not wanting to let go. And he grabs onto her. And basically that's when he begins to realize that the city, which again, this is the whole idea of Batman kind of changing his perspective and becoming something that we know as traditional Batman. The city does not need fear, it needs hope, which is what the bat symbol traditionally stands for. The symbol stands for hope for the innocent, fear for the criminals. That's what bat symbol traditionally stands for. But in this version of for the entire movie, up until this point, he was mostly just fear for everybody. So he knew he needed to kind of change some things around. And so at the end, Bruce and Selina say goodbye. You know, Bruce is still in Gotham. Movie ends with the Joker and the Riddler having this conversation, which, again, if I had to give some minor complaints to the movie, and this we're going to kind of dissect some things a bit more, the Joker felt kind of tacked on at the end, kind of like it was almost like the studio told him to do that, because it felt like, the studio was like, hey, you need to have something set him up for later on, because he was not present the entire movie. And Riddler was mostly, he was just there kind of like, it just felt kind of like something that would be a post-credit scene, but they just threw it in there, just had to have it there. It served really not a lot of purpose to the overall story, and it was just kind of there to be there. So that did kind of bug me just a little bit, seeing that. It also did, one thing that I wasn't a big fan of, was I didn't think the Catwoman storyline was as prevalent as a lot of the other ones, which is why I said she's not my favorite interpretation of Catwoman. She's my second favorite, but she's not my favorite. Michelle Pfeiffer is my favorite Catwoman still. But her storyline wasn't as prevalent and wasn't quite as interesting as the Riddler stuff going on. But it was serviceable enough not to be like an annoyance to the overall story. And ultimately, it did serve an entire purpose of a story of Bruce and Catwoman's stories being intertwined. And ultimately, it did involve the Riddler. So none of the stories branched off just to branch off. All the stories were definitely intertwined with the Riddler for sure. So that's what I mean by, even by like the minor issues I have, they aren't really issues. One complaint I can hear for a lot of people, and I cannot agree with this at all. A lot of people complain about that runtime. But Avengers Endgame was past 3 hours. Oh, but it didn't feel like 3 hours. This doesn't feel like 3 hours either. It is much more of a slow burn, but the cinematography, the dialogue, the way everything works through everything is so interesting to the point where it's able to service the audience well enough, or better than well enough, very well. But definitely one thing that I will say is that the reason why I think people have an issue with the runtime, and it's not me being like kind of like, shady. I think the reason why quite a few people have a problem with this runtime is because they have a short attention span. That's what I think, because I did not feel that runtime at all. Like, this is a very immersive film. And I also think that, Because like if you look at a lot of the MCU and a lot of other like superhero movies up until this point, like we haven't gotten a superhero movie like this in a while. One example I can think about is Joker, but that's not really a superhero movie. And you can even argue that this one isn't. Um, but it's because there's a lot of action in the MCU movies and a lot of the other ones, and it's very short times in between that action. So like, that's for people who just want to see a bunch of like action and superheroes punch each other. Like that's basically what it is. And so if you're expecting that going into this, don't go at all because you're not going to get all of that throughout the entire movie. There are action scenes, but it's spread out in moments where it's necessary, not unnecessary moments where it's like, oh, you're another person. Let's fight. They don't do that. So yeah. Also, another thing I think people probably do have a problem with is the fact that it's too soon, maybe, because Ben Affleck, he just got done being Batman, and he's still technically not done because he has the Flash movie, but for the most part, he's done. And so it's very recent. So for them to kind of reboot Batman again and have it be so soon, I can see a common issue with that. But guys, if you guys have like nitpicks and gripes, like honestly, I feel like people who have issues with this are just people who are just looking to go in and try to intentionally like tear this apart. Like it's hard for me to see what's really wrong with this. And you know me, I'm the type of guy who like doesn't let biases control my opinion, or really I'm the type of guy who also does look really hard. Like if I'm looking for issues, I look hard, like hard. I cannot see too many issues with this. Maybe the way he was running down the hall with the GCPD chasing him was a little bit funny, maybe a little bit Adam West. But other than that, I can't think of like too many things wrong with this, man. It's my favorite Batman movie. And for them to do another one that's going to be better than this, Matt Reeves has a very difficult task on his hands because this was so perfect, man. But another thing that I did hear about was Matt Reeves is looking at doing a live action interpretation of Mr. Freeze and doing a very grounded take on him. I can see him doing that. I would love to see a live action interpretation of Killer Croc, which I know a lot of people are going to be like, but he's a fantastical character. If he's talking about doing a realistic take on Mr. Freeze, I'm pretty sure he can do a realistic take on Killer Croc. Plus, the whole idea of Killer Croc is that he's not a crocodile, guys. The idea is that he has this disease that makes his skin look like he's a crocodile. They could go in that direction where his skin kind of looks very jagged, very rough, but then he kind of has a couple of elements that kind of make him look a little bit crocodile-ish, but a very grounded take. So they could do stuff like that. One other character I could think about that they could possibly do is maybe a Robin. I'm talking about like maybe 3 or 4 movies down, and not now, because he is definitely not ready to have a Robin yet. He still has a lot of developing to go as is Batman, and that's part of the good journey that they're going to have with this version of the character. But I would love to see a live action Robin. Maybe they could go in the direction of maybe not having like a little kid be out there with him, but maybe he starts off training him as a little kid, and once he turns about like 16, 17, that's when he starts patrolling the streets with him, if that makes sense. Like wouldn't that make more sense if that happened that way? They could do that. I don't know. Like, let me know some of your guys' things that you guys would like to see with this newer Batman movie coming out after this one down below in the comment section. Yeah, I was shocked at how good this was. Like, I think it's part of the reason why I didn't sleep well was because I was just thinking about this. And I even did a live stream a couple of minutes ago on Instagram. And I deleted it, so you guys can't really rewatch it. But I was watching it, or I was doing my live stream, and I was awkward because I was thinking about this movie so much. I'm like, I just want to talk about it with you guys because this is so good. I'm a little bit butthurt that Ben Affleck didn't get a Batman movie, but I'm about to get killed in the comment section, so better prepare. yeah, I prefer this version of Ben Affleck, and maybe this was the right move. Anyways, yeah, that was my thoughts on the Batman. Loved it. So what did you guys think of it? Let me know down below in the comment section. Let me know who your guys' favorite Batman is, because for me, it's Pattinson. He has the movements down. This is the only Batman that's made me legitimately feel intimidated of him. He has the detective elements. He's also that type of Batman who's going to develop with over time. And just like I said, the way he moves in the suit determines his actions and his feelings. You can see his feelings through the suit, which is the most expressive Batman that we've gotten. And this is why we don't need a Batman with wide eyes, because, you know, you would be a fool to hide Robert Pattinson's eyes in the suit, because that's where most of the emotion comes from. So, yeah. What can I say? If you guys have not seen my non-spoiler review of this movie, make sure you guys check that out. I'll probably leave, I'll leave a link for that in the description, okay? I'm also going to come out with my ranking video, I think either Monday or Tuesday. I'll do that. I'm also going to come out with a video ranking all the Batman suits and a lot of other stuff to Batman, because I'm obsessed with this. So there's so much more content I can create based off this. So thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. Those of you who have joined me, thank you very much. I appreciate the support. And those of you guys who are watching after the live stream, make sure you guys comment down below. Hashtag Battinson, hashtag best Batman, and also comment down below if you have differing opinions. Anything else that you guys want to say? And yeah, this has been a great live stream. I appreciate all of you guys, the support. We're at 151 now. Now let's try and get up to 200 by either the end of the month or the beginning of next month. So thank you guys very much. And as always, if you guys liked the live stream, make sure you guys subscribe today to join the Azillistic. Hold on. I got something. Hold on. I got to drag this out. You guys know I got to drag this out. Hold on. Uh-huh. 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 Yeah, y'all didn't think you knew, suckers. Hold on. Hold on. I got you. I got you. Yeah. Oh, you guys will see. Boy. How am I part of this? You'll see. Oh, man, this thing gets hot. Hold on. Yeah, and sorry for the mic movement. This might be a bit awkward. All right, hold up. All right. Uh-huh. Yep. God, this feels so weird putting this on. If you guys have stuck with me with this live stream, or stuck with me in this video by this point, you guys are some real ones, because I'm so weird sometimes. Hold on. Uh-huh. I got the Pattinson cowl. Yes, I did. Uh-huh. Yeah. Looks pretty cool, huh? Sure, my mic is on the outside. Yeah, looks pretty cool, huh? Of course, it flips over it. But, if you liked the video... Hold on. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe today to join the Azilization. Oh! All right. Thank you guys for watching, and you guys have a great day.